Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. can't help Trevor Lawrence finally hit his potential, then he might just be a lost cause. We discuss the Jaguars' top 3 storylines entering the 2025 season on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
We are continuing to go through all 32 teams and their top 3 storylines entering this upcoming season. We started with the Texans on yesterday's show. Today, we're going to discuss the Jaguars' top 3 storylines. And that's obviously going to have to include the 2 dynamic young wide receiver duo in Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. Plus, can Trevor Lawrence finally hit his full potential? And then what is happening in this Jaguars backfield? Is it Travis Etienne's backfield that he owns? Will it be a 3-headed monster, 2-headed monster? We will discuss all of that today. Let's start with this young wide receiver duo, Brian Thomas Jr. and Travis Hunter. So Brian Thomas Jr. is obviously going very early in drafts. He's going to be a late first-round pick. We have talked a lot about him, and we think that he's worth that cost, right? But is there room for both Thomas and Travis Hunter to be good fantasy assets this year? Like, can Hunter be a top 20 wide receiver and Brian Thomas Jr. be a top 10 guy?
Absolutely. I mean, there's that potential. And there's some things that might surprise you about this potential here. And Travis Hunter right now, very conservatively ranked, knowing that he's going to play a lot of offense and defense. He's conservatively ranked at wide receiver 31 in half-point PPR. Now, that puts him in starters territory, right? Top 36. That makes him a wide receiver 3 in our lineups. I think this is, of course, selling him short. If this is his end value now, take it and run and go get him right now, because everything says this team can sustain 2 top wide receivers. And you might think, okay, we've seen this before. Is it going to work out this time? Well, yes, it will, because you look at Chris Godwin last year. I think we forget about this. Before he went down with his injury and then Jalen McMillan took over down the stretch, this guy was the average wide receiver 2. That's insane, because Mike Evans finished as the average wide receiver 9. So this team would have had 2 top 12 wide receivers if Godwin had not been hurt, because you look at McMillan's numbers down the stretch. They mirrored a lot of what Godwin did early in the season. There was a little bit of a lag there when Godwin went down initially. They needed to get that back up. But when you look at the numbers, they were all there for Godwin and Evans working together. Why is this important? We know Liam Cohen, the offense coordinator of the Bucs last year, is now the Jaguars head coach this year. So that's really good news. And plus, let's look around here. There's not a McMillan on this team. You have now Diami Brown. You've got a shot on Gabe Davis, who really didn't do anything last year, and coming over from the Bills, like, he just wasn't available. So there's not a lot of targets to go around. I will mention there's not a lot of vacated targets at wide receiver, but again, it's because Christian Kirk was hurt a lot of the year, and you didn't really have – it was kind of a committee there opposite Brian Thomas. That's why he had that big year as a rookie, right? They needed to make him the go-to guy. Whether it was Trevor Lawrence or Mac Jones in there, he had to dominate the target. So all things point to there's room for 2 receivers to dominate on this team. Now, the Jaguars threw about 58% of the time last year. 55 was the Buccaneers number, but that's because the Buccaneers were a better team than the Jaguars. But they were still a pretty pass-heavy team, being a winning team, right? Usually the numbers are skewed. So there should be plenty of opportunities, targets to go around. Those 70 targets, probably a lot are going to be absorbed by Hunter here. So, I mean, that's great. I mean, on top of cutting into these other guys' targets. So I love it. Again, this is very low. Now, I'm not saying you're necessarily going to get 2 top 12 wide receivers in the situation, because the Jaguars necessarily may not be the Bucs from last year in terms of putting up numbers and passing the ball. But when you look at it, definitely there's wide receiver 2 comfortability and upside with Travis Hunter. So if that's the case, that's still well outshining where he is. And in my book, if you have a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2 on the team, those are a pair of studs because, again, one usually cuts into the other, but now you'd have two really good guys, much like we've seen in Philadelphia or Tampa.
Yeah, and like you brought up, they really don't have that third guy. So most of these targets should be funneling through these two players. And you brought up not a ton of wide receiver vacated targets, but it's because of how often they use their tight end with Doug Peterson. Evan Ingram only played 9 games and he had 64 targets. And then Brenton Strange had 53. Those were the number 2 and number 3 targets on the Jaguars last year after Brian Thomas Jr. That's just Doug Peterson loves to use a tight end, right? And Liam Cohen put on when he needed to last year when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were both injured and not playing. Then that's when he used Kate Otten. But when he had wide receivers healthy that he could trust, he funneled those targets to the wide receiver position. And I think a fair, realistic expectation for this duo is saying that they can both be top 20, right? With Brian Thomas hopefully having that top 10 potential, or like he'll end top 10 because that's where you're going to have to pay up for him. But we've seen there's a handful of duos almost every year where they're finishing top 20 each. I mean, you had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, both top 4 in average points per game last year. You had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison both finished top 20 in total points this past season. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams, both top 20. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, both top 20 in average points per game. So it does happen. And a lot of these teams have really, really good offenses. Now we need Trevor Lawrence to step it up. We'll see if we can do that, and we'll get to that. But I do have hope with the change to Liam Cohen and all of that. Now, with Travis Hunter, I know a lot of people are worried about how much playing time he'll have, right? Because he's playing on both sides of the ball. I mean, Chris Olave is a rookie, played 58% of the team snaps that season, finished with over 1,000 yards. Ladd McConkey last year, great rookie season, 68% of team snaps. I think being in the 60s is very, very fair, realistic expectation for him to be on the field on offense. He's not going to be playing 87+%. No, but he doesn't need to. There's plenty of guys who do great things for fantasy and they're on the field for, 60 to 70% of the time.
Yeah, I think the one thing about this, and we're going to watch Travis Hunter on the field in the rookie minicamp this week. Let's see how much he's used. I mean, you're not going to get an exact percentage, right? They're going to get his feet wet in this offense and this defense, right? But I would think they feel that they need Travis Hunter more on offense at this point. So they can adjust the snaps based on their team needs at this point. I mean, yeah, they're not the greatest at corner, but they do have a pretty good one in Tyson Campbell, just like they have a pretty good one in Brian Thomas Jr. So it'll be interesting to see how they balance that. But I think it's going to be a good chunk of snaps on offense for Hunter. That's where they really need him. They want to fix this offense. That's why they brought in Liam Cohen. They want to get Trevor Lawrence back on track, and really on track, finally, where he's putting up consistent numbers here. So I think that all tells you, but maybe you'll get a hint of how they use him. But Michelle makes a good point. You don't need a lot of snaps. What you need is a lot of opportunities when you're on the field. And if Hunter's on the field, you better be sure they're going to try to get the ball to him. If the coverage kind of rotates to Thomas, they're going to do everything they can to get Hunter the ball. So I would expect when he's on the field, getting those snaps and being out there with Thomas, he's going to have a good percentage of those plays see targets. So all those things you have to think about beyond just the targets, it's the opportunities. And we will get into the biggest factor, right, in making both of these guys deliver for us. It's the quarterback. And we'll break down Trevor Lawrence. Is this his last chance to prove it in reality and fantasy? We'll get into that here in our next segment. All right, the NBA playoffs are totally heating up here. It's exciting. I mean, the Celtics and Cavaliers have lost games early. You've got the Thunder also needing to kind of rally here. You got the Warriors ready to tip off. They survived a thrilling 7-game series to move on. So I'm looking forward to seeing where these teams go in the second round. The NBA playoffs are just awesome. They deliver every night with highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's game-winning shot or breakout player, there's never been a better time to get into the action on FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. You can check out the players in their biggest moments, the props there with their points, assists, rebounds, all the good stuff. You can combine those into a same-game parlay as well as the team results. So you could do a lot of stuff here with your action on FanDuel, and it's a perfect time to sign in on FanDuel. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If you can win with that, you would get $200 in bonus bets. That's right. That's a good way to start your action with the NBA on FanDuel. Make every moment more at FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Michelle, the elephant in the room here with the Jaguars to try to get these receivers back on track or to get to where we want to be is Trevor Lawrence. But we do have Liam Cohen. He's the quarterback magician. He turned Trevor Lawrence into a 40 touchdown pass guy last year, but that was, Baker Mayfield, but that was building on what we had from Baker the previous year with Dave Canales. We had Doug Peterson kind of throw off Trevor Lawrence. Now, the best finish Trevor Lawrence has had was in his sophomore year when he got away from the Urban Meyer mess, worked with Peterson. He ended up as the QB 14 on average, so just to borderline deep league QB1, and QB 9 total that season. So that was solid, but Michelle, last season, however, he finished as QB 27 in average scoring. So he was not even on the radar as a QB2, but now he's ranked as a QB 19. Now, do you think this is fair? And let's start. Do we believe in Trevor Lawrence?
I don't know if I believe in Trevor Lawrence, but I do know if he is actually good, right? They paid him a lot of money. He coming out of school, everyone was saying he's the next, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning. If he is actually good, then he has to be good this year, right? You can't have this new coach and play caller in Liam Cohen, which we all are excited for, and then have Brian Thomas Jr., who had an excellent rookie season, and we can see how talented he is and just such a great guy for any quarterback to have to lean on out there with how big he is and fast. And then add Travis Hunter. And for them to do all this and you still struggle, that would be very, very scary. There is not a lot of reasons to have optimism that he's going to be a good fantasy quarterback, right? He's played 60 games in the NFL. He has scored 20 plus fantasy points in just 12 of those 60 games. It's 20%. He has scored fewer than 16 fantasy points in 32 of 60 games played, more than half. But I just brought up all the changes they made. He is still only 25 years old, still super, super young. I do think adding Diami Brown could be a help too. I mean, he's a speedster too, to open up, give him more space to work to. And then also Gabe Davis was injured for a solid chunk of last year too. So he comes back, offers that deep speed too. And he brought up what Liam Cohen did for Baker Mayfield. And when it was by far an outlier year for Baker in terms of passing touchdowns. And that's really been Lawrence's biggest issue, right? I mean, the turnovers have to stop. The interceptions have been absurd, but his pass touchdown rate is so incredibly low. So hopefully these weapons and Liam Cohen can help get that up.
Yeah, there's a lot of parallels also, and that's why I was maybe jumping the gun and already conflating Trevor Lawrence with Baker Mayfield, because I do think he has that potential. I mean, yet again, a number one overall pick that Liam Cohen is working with. I mean, Baker was a few years earlier. And we forget Trevor Lawrence was only in 2021, right, after the Joe Burrow draft. So he's still relatively youthful in his NFL career, has kind of knock on going while Baker is approaching 30 here. So is it going to work the same way? We've seen Dave Canales work his magic with Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield, some older quarterbacks, and you saw Cohen really work with Mayfield, where he had a connection with for a short period of time with Rams. So this is a new introduction here for Lawrence, but I do like some of the things he can do. He has a big arm to push the ball downfield. The other thing is he's athletic, and Baker Mayfield was maximized at that spot with his ability to run, move around in the pocket, and even take off and run and get some numbers. And keep in mind, that was a big part of Trevor Lawrence finishing as a QB9, like his running and scoring some touchdowns. So we need, look, I'm not asking for a lot. I'm asking for 3 to 5 touchdowns, maybe like 400 yards. That would be really helpful with his numbers there with Lawrence. So again, that's what we're looking for there. But again, the offense just could be so good and open it up. And look, Doug Peterson, it was a hard offense to watch sometimes. I mean, they would be compressed. They would throw to the middle of the field. That's why you had Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram. That's not what we want here, Liam Cohen. Throw the ball downfield. You have 2 guys to do it now, and Thomas and Hunter. That opens things up. Trevor Lawrence has a massive arm. Push it downfield. Get those air yards. get those yards per attempt up, and he has to do less to put up those numbers we're looking for, which is more than 4,000 yards, trying to at least get to 30 touchdowns. We'll take that. We don't need 40. We just want 30 to make sure he finishes above this. So I'm excited about it. I want to be more enthusiastic, but again, probably the past with Lawrence is hard to get over. But again, Mayfield didn't give us all that, and we got over that. Now we're all in love with Mayfield as a reliable fantasy quarterback. So it can change in a hurry. We just maybe anointed Lawrence a little bit too early. Like we thought he was going to be Joe Burrow right away, but maybe he was Mayfield. Needed a little bit of time and the right offense to get going. So I'm cautiously optimistic. That said, I'm not banging the table for him. He's a guy I want to add into a mix and play the matchups. I'm not necessarily someone who says, oh, he's going to be a steal of the draft. I just can't see that yet. Maybe I'll change my mind as we get closer, but not at this moment. I think he's a guy you draft as a QB2 with some upside on your bench if you're a little bit concerned about your QB1. But again, I'm not going to target him necessarily as a top 12 steal here.
Yeah, and if he can get to 30 passing touchdowns, I mean, he would be a steal in drafts because I do fully expect it. I mean, his last full season, fullish in 2023 in the 16 games, he had 339 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. He had 5 rushing touchdowns the year prior. So, like, we expect him to get those rushing yards slightly and those rushing touchdowns. But the issue is that he's only thrown 32 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons combined. So him getting 30 next year would be a big step up. Not saying he can't do it. It's just not super realistic for him to make that jump. However, like you brought up, Baker made that jump with Liam Cohen. So probably it could possibly happen. Now, yesterday we talked about CJ Stroud when we hit on the Texans, right? Would you rather take a shot on CJ Stroud? They're basically sitting right around the same area where they're getting drafted. CJ Stroud's going as the quarterback 17, Trevor Lawrence as the quarterback 19. Would you rather take a shot on Trevor Lawrence or CJ Stroud for next year?
I mean, yeah, we talked about Stroud being a guy that you want to stash for the matchups and all that. I think Lawrence could do a little bit more than that. I think he just comes with more upside. I think Stroud might have a better floor to start out, but the Jaguars and this offense with Lawrence has a higher ceiling for sure. So when I'm drafting backups and guys behind, I want ceiling. Hopefully I already have my floor and my ceiling with my starter, so I'm going to go swing for the fences here, and Lawrence gives you that. Again, he also gives you something in the running game that Stroud does not give you at all.
Yeah, I lean with Trevor Lawrence too, and that's saying a lot because I've been kind of the Trevor Lawrence hater. I really do expect this to be Trevor Lawrence's best year of his career. And again, if it can't be, and it has to be much better than any year of his career, then we just need to give up hope on him completely of being not only for fantasy, but also for the NFL. And the Jaguars will then have massively overpaid him as well. But we have another huge question going into the season is what is this running back room going to look like? Who's going to be the starter? Is Travis Etienne going to get his job back and fully take over here? Or is it going to be a 3-headed monster with the rookie and Tank Bigsby and Etienne? We will get to all of that to end today's show. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. The Skylight calendar will help you and your family stay organized and eliminate the I don't know, I didn't know excuse from your family's routine. No more missed plans because they're buried in a digital calendar or not written down at all. With Skylight Calendar, you can see your whole week clearly on a 15-inch HD screen. Right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your first 15-inch calendar. That is skylightcal.com/NFL. We've been talking about this backfield a little bit with the Jaguars, and I know I am a lot more bullish on Travis Etienne's chance to really bounce back than you are, because I don't think it all just went away in 1 year. He's still very young. He recently just turned 26 years old. It was a disaster of a year last year for this whole Jaguars offense besides Brian Thomas Jr. And Etienne, I mean, unusable, right? Running back 43 in average points per game last year, running back 36 overall. But he's 1 year removed from being the running back 3 overall. And he had over 1,400 scrimmage yards in each of his first 2 seasons in the NFL that he played. So I don't think it all went away. I still think he's very, very talented. He has that breakout potential of like, not breakout potential as like an NFL player, but in terms of that speed to have a home run play in any given time he's given the ball. I still really like Etienne, and I think he's the clear cut best running back on this team.
Yeah, it comes down to is just Etienne, the second version of Rashad White. And now here's the question, though. I don't think they've used it that way, right? On this team, like that's been the surprise. I mean, it was much the surprise with another first round late pick that would turn out to be a total bust, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, where he was a receiver, and that's what he did to change of pace. And then the Chiefs tried to use him in the wrong way, where he wasn't catching passes, didn't have that value, and just became like a power back that was ineffective. Now, I think Travis Etienne has been better in that role. Like, I think he was a better workhorse in college overall, and he's shown that, right, with his bursts and his touchdown ability, where he can score, and that's really helped his fantasy value over the years in his best season. So, again, this back is very talented. Keep in mind, again, after Trevor Lawrence, he was a first-round pick, so they kind of took the Clemson combination there in 2021 in the first round. So I look at this and say, it's tough. I mean, you look at it, Travis Etienne is 36 on the board right now, and half-point PPR. That's kind of really low to me. I mean, you take Bigsby is right behind him with 37. That's odd. And then you go down and Bashal Tutin is 50. So this says when these rankings come out like this as a consensus, they tell me no one is exactly sure what you're going to get out of the backfield. And that's a backfield exploit in your favor, folks, because when you look at it, I mean, this is too cheap. This is a guy that's the lead back for his team, probably most likely. It's a new offense. So it's a new lease on life here for his usage that goes forward. I mean, Bigsby's a guy that if they believed in him a little bit more, I don't think they would have taken Bashal too. Like, I think there needed a little bit of extra behind. And I look at it, and they could have gone for Ashton Genty. Remember those rumors right before the draft? They could have gone all the way and replaced Etienne with a feature back, but they didn't do that. They took more competition for their backup. So I think it's going to be good, but I don't think it's going to be great. But that said, he's not a running back 3 to me because he's going to get the volume. You shouldn't be at the bottom of those guys. That's what he's at right now, the last of those, and a flex type play. So I expect more than that. So at his current cost now, I think he's a steal. Really comes down to Hunter, Lawrence, and Etienne, just all undervalued. Maybe people not realizing, hey, Liam Cohn's going to transform the Jaguars offense.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Etienne is just a screaming value right now. If he was still being drafted as a top 20 guy, like a Breece Hall is when he's been highly, underperforming, and the name just keeps making him a highly costed player. But one down year for Travis Etienne, and it's completely buried him. And it wasn't just a down year; it was a terrible year. I know that, and it didn't look like he was trying out there. But hopefully, this whole change with the coaches and all that will give him renewed like hope with this team, and he'll be out there doing what he was doing the first 2 years. But yeah, him being ranked behind Isaiah Pacheco and Brian Robinson Jr. and Tyrone Tracy Jr. and Jalen Warren and Ramondre Stevenson and Zach Charbonnet, like give me Travis Etienne over all of those guys pretty easily. So yeah, I think I'll have a lot of him on my team just because of the cost. Again, if he was expensive, I would be staying away because it is risky that he won't get back to his 2023 version and that he will have competition with touches with Bithune? Tutin?
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Bashal.
Thank you. I knew I butchered that first name. Bashal Tutin and Tank Bigsby. But again, I just think Etienne's the much better running back among that trio. Now, I know we're just doing the top 3 storylines and Bretton Strange doesn't fall on that, but I did want to hit on him really, really quick. So a little bonus here. Bretton Strange, he was the 3rd most targeted guy in this offense last year at 53 targets, and that's with Evan Ingram playing half the year. And heavy with the tight end targets last year, but that's probably just Doug Peterson again and Doug Peterson's offense. But with Evan Ingram gone, and maybe Travis Hunter is more limited than we think, even though we don't think that. Is there value with Brenton Strange late in drafts?
Yeah, right now he's ranked tight end 27. The Jaguars do have the most vacated targets of any team at tight end, which
And
is 82.
he was a second round pick just 2 years ago. It's not like
Yeah,
he has good draft capital.
Yeah, he has good draft capital. He's a talented guy who can get open. He has some wide receiver hybrid qualities here. So when you look at him, I think he's just got some untapped talent. Again, they also have a bit of a void in trying to get that consistent third target here behind Thomas and Hunter. So again, what you want to see the passing volume bump up here, but also know Cade Otton had some flashes, but he wasn't a guy that you consistently played there as the third option for Tampa. And then you have a different third option emerge, but really he was always in the mix as Godwin and McMillan, that kind of thing split as well. So again, be careful about Brenton Strange, but I think as a tight end too, if you're not thrilled about your starter, like I think you add this guy with some upside on your bench, or if you're playing the streaming game, not a bad guy to stash with maybe a different type of tight end. Maybe you get a Colson Loveland or a Tyler Warren, and you just want to make sure you hedge your bets at that and knowing that you can stream in the right matchup. So Brenton Strange, yeah, it's going to be on the radar again. He's down with everybody. It's not a surprise, right? Everyone is down on everything Jaguars based on this drafting, except for Brian Thomas Jr. But everyone's like, what else are we going to get? And I think it says we're not sure. But again, if we look into the crystal ball and we say, look, we know what Liam Coen can do. We know what the numbers are. We know the precedent with the Buccaneers and going into the Jaguars. That's what you have to do. Don't look at the past, because I think that's what people are doing. They're like, okay, we're just going to rank Brian Thomas Jr. where he was ending up last year. That doesn't tell us all that much, right? We want to go forward, and that's what we're going to do here on the show. We're going to look forward and tell you guys that you may not be thinking about. And Strange is a good guy to bring up. We also love his last name. We just like guys named Strange because, again, it's very odd or weird to me that he's way down there among the tight ends. Like, he has got some talent, and I think the Jaguars know this as well. Could be a secret weapon for them, and one that you're going to look at more as a tight end too in fantasy.
Yeah, if you're going to punt the tight end position and just wait till one of your last picks, I'd much rather go with the upside of a Brenton Strange at a new role than go with a guy like Mike Gesicki or Hunter Henry or Dalton Schultz or even like a Dallas Goedert, even, who's going much earlier. Like, you just know what those guys are. I would rather go with the upside, because what those guys are not helping you win your weeks whatsoever. But that is it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be back tomorrow discussing the top 3 biggest storylines for the Indianapolis Colts. We will talk to you then. Bye, y'all.